Welcome back to Virtual Bedtime Stories from your very own Newark Public Library. We are streaming this live story time on land that rightfully belongs to the Lenape Indian tribe. And if you are tuning in from anywhere in our fair city of Newark, New Jersey this evening, it's likely that you are tuning in from land that rightfully belongs to the Lenape Indians as well. I am your bedtime host, Mix Alley. That is mix like mixtape, not to be confused with Mr., Ms., Mrs., or Miss, because, as you can see very well, I am not a boy nor am I a girl. I'm a unicorn. And so is my storytelling companion. He is ready for fun. He is ready for storytelling. He's ready for bed. Welcome back, Jonathan Van Unicorn.
Good evening, everyone. Oh, yes, I really am ready for bed, Miss Sally. I've had a very, very long day of sparkling and glittering and making the world a better place.
Well, Jonathan, I'm glad that you are ready for a bedtime story. Do you think you'll be able to get cozy and listen?
Oh yes, Miss Sally, I think I will. What kind of a story are we listening to tonight?
Well, Jonathan, we are going to start off with a new chapter from our book 10 in a Bed, in which every single night a girl named Dinah Price goes to bed, finds a fairy tale character in her bed, and she has to tell a story, usually before that fairy tale character will leave and let her go to bed at bedtime the way that her parents want her to.
Oh, wonderful. And then are we going to do bedtime yoga?
We are, Jonathan, just as we always have before on Virtual Bedtime Stories, although it's going to be a little different tonight. I hope that you all enjoy it. So let's go ahead and get started with the next chapter of 10 in a Bed. Are you ready to cuddle up with all the stuffed animals in this bed, Jonathan?
Oh, yes, absolutely. We're all great friends, Miss Sally.
I am so glad to hear that. All right. Well, Jonathan and my other friends up here are getting in a comfortable position. I encourage you to do the same. And I will read you one chapter from 10 in a Bed, written by Alan Alberg and illustrated by Andre Umstitz. We've read this book a couple weeks in a row now, but we've been reading a new chapter every time. And as we were just saying, every evening, Dinah Price goes to bed and finds some very insistent fairy tale character in her bed who just does not want to leave. This is chapter 5. It is called Wilfred. I wonder what Wilfred will be like. Previously, Dinah has met the 3 bears, the Wicked Witch, Sleeping Beauty, and Puss in Boots. So let's find out who her new guest is in chapter 5, Wilfred. The next day, Dinah Price got up, put her slippers on, and went into her mom and dad's room. Because it was Saturday, they were still in bed. Her baby brother was in the bed too, and he was bouncing in it. Dinah sat on the bed and told her mom and dad about Sleeping Beauty, but the baby's bouncing was distracting them. Also, they were arguing, as usual, about which of them should fetch the tea, so they didn't listen. After breakfast, Dinah went shopping with her mom and dad. Her baby brother was being looked after by a neighbor. Her big brother was playing football with his friends. In town, Dinah bought some ants' eggs for her pet goldfish. Outside the co-op, she saw her teacher, Mrs. Hicks. Mrs. Hicks said hello, and Dinah felt very shy. When the shopping was finished, Dinah and her mom and dad had lunch at a cafe. It was self-service. Dinah had bacon and sausage, chips and peas, apple crumble, custard, and a cup of tea. In the afternoon, Dinah's Uncle Jim came around with his motorbike. Dinah's dad helped him to take it to bits out on the drive. A motorbike is the same thing as a motorcycle. When she got the chance, Dinah told Uncle Jim about Sleeping Beauty. Uncle Jim said he had a sleeping beauty of his own, Dinah's Auntie Annie. She would sleep for 200 years if you let her, he said. Before tea, Dinah went with her dad and her big brother to take the dog for a walk. They went into the park. Dinah's dad let the dog off the lead and had trouble getting him back. Dinah and her brother had to go on the swings. They watched two girls who were flying a kite. When bedtime came, Dinah Price kissed her mom and dad goodnight, kissed her Uncle Jim, too, who was still there and had oil from fixing his motorcycle on his nose, climbed the stairs, went into her room, and found a wolf in her bed. The wolf lay in bed with the bedclothes up to his chin. His front paws rested on the eiderdown. He had an old lady's nightcap on his head with one wolfish ear sticking out. There was a smile of sorts on his wolfish face. Dinah remained near the door with her hand on the doorknob and looked at the wolf. She knew a little bit about wolves. There was the wolf that Red Riding Hood had had trouble with when she went to visit her grandma. There was another one, or was it the same one, who had tried to get the three little pigs out of their three little houses. Dinah comforted herself with the thought that the wolf had not triumphed in either case. Wolves were the losers in the stories she knew. The wolf lay in bed and looked craftily at Dinah. "Come in, my dear, come in," he spoke in an unconvincing, squeaky voice. "Have you bought a custard pie and a little pot of butter for your old grandma?" "Of course not," said Dinah. "You are not my old grandma. You are not anybody's old grandma. You are a wolf." "Quite so," said the wolf in his normal voice. He sat up in bed and removed his grandma's cap. "On the other hand, it did seem worth a try. I am not Red Riding Hood either. My name is Dinah Price." "Is that a fact? Well, do not get uppity with me, Dinah Price, or I might eat you up. I might eat you up anyway." "My Uncle Jim is downstairs," said Dinah. "He is a hunter." "I might eat him as well." The ease with which Dinah had spotted his disguise had put the wolf in a bad mood. Dinah made an effort to change the subject. Would you like it if I told you a story?" "A story?" said the wolf. "What for?" "Well, you see, I tell you a story, and you listen, and then you go home to your own house and your own bed." "Why should I do that?" said the wolf. And then he said, "What's it about?" Dinah thought for a minute. She ventured a step or two toward the bed. "It's about a good little wolf who lived with his mom and dad and his big brother and his baby brother on the edge of a wood. You see, one day—" "What was his name?" said the wolf. "What's your name?" "Wilfred," said the wolf. That was his name, Wilfred. Well, one day, Wilfred's mummy gave him some nice lamb chops in a little basket to take to his poor old grandma, who lived in the cottage in the middle of the wood. It was a neat little cottage. It had a red roof, yellow curtains, and roses. "You can skip all that," said the wolf. "Yes, so anyway, Wilfred put his hat and coat on and set off to his grandma's cottage. He picked a few flowers for his grandma on the way and whistled a tune to himself called The Teddy Bear's Picnic." "Never heard of it," said the wolf. But despite his grumpy remarks, Wilfred was beginning to attend to the story and making himself more comfortable in the bed. All of a sudden, Wilfred the wolf met a naughty little girl named Red Riding Hood. She wanted to get those lamb chops from him and eat them for herself. Well, wait a minute, the wolf was frowning. "In this story of yours, does the wolf get to eat Red Riding Hood up and her grandma?" "Her grandma isn't in the story."
and her grandma, said the wolf, and live happily ever after?
Well, no, not really.
Not interested, then, said the wolf. I only like stories with happy endings where the wolf gets to eat everybody.
I never heard of any stories like that, said Dinah.
That shows how little you know. The wolf turned over on his side to face the wall. He appeared to be sulking.
In the ones I know, a hunter or a woodcutter or somebody always comes in at the last minute and, stops the wolf, said Dinah tactfully.
Yeah, well, there's other versions, said the wolf over his shoulder. Lots of them.
Dinah took a step nearer to the bed. She was now standing at the foot of it.
Such as? The wolf turned to face her. Such as where the wolf just gets to eat Red Riding Hood up, and that's the end of it. That's the oldest version, if you only knew it. Or when he eats her grandma, the woodcutter, and 4 or 5 others who came along and poked in their noses and wished they hadn't. That's the one our mother used to tell us. The wolf sat up in his bed and toyed with his grandma's cap. Yeah, there's lots of versions. I even heard of one where the wolf had a motorbike.
My Uncle Jim has a motorbike, said Dinah.
You said he was a hunter.
So he is. He's a hunter with a motorbike. Then Dinah said, what about the wolf and the 3 little pigs? Are there lots of versions of that?
I couldn't say, said the wolf. That's some other wolf.
It's where the wolf says, I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house in.
All right. The wolf's temper seemed to be worsening. I didn't say I hadn't heard the story.
Then there's the song, said Dinah. You know, Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Wolf?
I'm not musical, said the wolf.
Well, it goes, who's afraid of the big bad wolf, the big bad wolf, the big bad wolf? Who's afraid of the big bad wolf? Tra-la-la-la-la.
The wolf scowled. Tra-la-la-la-la. That's a weak line. And he said, anyway, what about this story you were telling?
You said you weren't interested, said Dinah.
I've changed my mind. If it's that or tra-la-la, I'm interested. Besides, I've just thought of something. The wolf seemed suddenly to be cheering up. Why don't we just have the best part of the story? You know, where Red Riding Hood comes to her grandma's cottage, and her grandma is, well, under the bed, say, tied up, and the wolf is cunningly disguised as the grandma.
What about little Wilfred? Said Diana.
Forget little Wilfred. Now then, let's do it like this. The wolf was definitely cheering up. You be Red Riding Hood, and I'll be the wolf.
You are the wolf, said Dinah.
Then you say, oh, Grandma, what big ears you got. And I say,
I'm not sure about this, said Dinah.
Come on, be a sport.
Well, if the proper grandma really is only tied up under the bed,
she is. She hasn't got a scratch.
And if you promise to go home afterwards to your own bed,
I promise, cross my heart, and hope to die.
Well,
that's the ticket.
The wolf pulled the bedclothes up to his chin and placed his front paws on the eiderdown blanket.
Now, you come in with your little basket, and what can you use for a basket?
I've got a basket, said Dinah. It's the one I had my Easter egg in. She opened her wardrobe and took out a small raffia basket.
That'll do. So you come in with your basket, and you sit there on the stool.
Hesitantly, Dinah sat on the stool.
Then you say,
oh, Grandma, what big ears you've got, said Dinah.
That's it. And I say, once more the wolf assumed his squeaky voice, all the better to hear you with, my dear. Oh, Grandma, what big eyes you've got, said Dinah. She spoke now with more expression. She was getting into the part. And the wolf said, all the better to see you with, my dear. Oh, Grandma. Dinah paused. There was a slight noise on the landing, a creaking stair, the bathroom door closing. Oh, Grandma, what big... Come on, said the wolf. What big teeth you've got, said Dinah. All the better to eat you with, my dear. At this point, perhaps carried away by the part he was playing, the wolf threw back the bedclothes and made as if to leap on Dinah and, who knows, gobble her up. Help! Help! Shouted Dinah. And at that point, a voice on the landing called out, Is everything all right? It's Uncle Jim, said Dinah. Quick as a flash, the wolf leapt from the bed and dived into the wardrobe. He was only just in time, for then the bedroom door opened and Uncle Jim stuck his head in. Well, is everything all right? Said Uncle Jim. Well, said Dinah, I have got a wolf in my wardrobe. Ah, said Uncle Jim. He looked across the darkening room into the wardrobe. The door was shut, though, because the wolf had closed it behind him. Which one is it, Red Riding Hood or the Three Little Pigs? Red Riding Hood, said Dinah. Ah, said Uncle Jim. So, what would you like me to do? Shoot him? Dinah sat on her bed and thought for a minute. I'm not sure. Or I could run him over, maybe, with my motorbike. It depends. Dinah, having an idea, raised her voice. It depends on how he behaves himself. Ah, said Uncle Jim. He advanced into the room. Nice place you got here. He took a yo-yo from the toy box, had a go with it, and put it back. After that, he whistled briefly and glanced out the window. Then he said, Well, I suppose you'll be wanting to sleep now. Dinah did not reply. She was uncertain what to say. All the same, she got into bed and allowed herself to be tucked in. Uncle Jim gave her a kiss on top of her head. He smelled of gasoline, she noticed, and had a pencil tucked behind his ear. On his way out, Uncle Jim said, I'll leave the door open a little. If that wolf starts acting up again, you give me a call. Then he was gone. Dinah Price lay in bed and waited. She could hear the birds twittering in the tree outside the window, and an ambulance siren a long way off. She could hear her own breathing, her own heart beating. She could hear, just faintly, the jangling of coat hangers in the wardrobe. At last the wolf emerged, clutching his grandma's cap in one paw and looking worried. He scowled at Dinah and stepped over to the window. It was open, but he opened it further. Dinah said, Are you going home now, Wilfred? Less of the Wilfred, said the wolf. He lowered his voice to a whisper. Don't get uppity with me, little lady. I might still eat you up. But you are going. Definitely, said the wolf. And to himself he added, Run over by a motorbike. Now that's a new version. After that, he leapt up onto the window ledge, out into the tree, down onto the dewy grass, and away. Dinah slipped out of bed and shut the window behind him. She looked out into the garden, but already the wolf had disappeared. A heavy bee blundered against the window and made her jump. She pulled the curtains across the window, and got into bed. Dinah Price lay in the bed and stared up at the ceiling. After a while, she closed her eyes, turned over on her side, and slept till morning. And that is the end. Oh, I'm glad Dinah found such a clever way
to get rid of that wolf.
Well, now, as we mentioned at the beginning of the show,
We always finish up bedtime story time with a little bedtime yoga.
we also talk a lot about how the most important part of yoga, which is
A kind of exercise that can get you really relaxed, ready to rest, ready to have a wonderful day tomorrow, is to breathe deeply in and out. That really helps to calm your body down and remind you that things are going to be okay. And because the most important part of yoga is breathing, we're not going to tell the bedtime yoga story tonight. We are just going to do a special kind of yoga breathing. It's going to calm you down and get you ready for bed tonight. And it's also something that you can do anytime during the day. If you're feeling stressed, if you're feeling worried, if you're angry and you need to take a moment to calm down, you can always do this little exercise. So we're going to do it together. Get comfortable. You can be sitting, you can be standing, whatever you like. So, first thing you're going to do is make a little phone with your hand, okay? And then use your finger, and if you're not comfortable touching your face right now, that's okay. But if you feel okay about that, go ahead and put one finger over one of your nostrils like this, okay? And take a deep breath in. Hold that breath while you move your other finger to cover your other nostril and let that breath out. Then take another breath in through this second nostril. Switch fingers while you hold that breath. And let it out. It's a funny little thing to do that can really make you feel calmer. So let's try 4 breaths like that together, and then we'll say goodnight, okay? There you go. I don't know about you, but I feel really peaceful now. I hope you all have the very sweetest of dreams. Jonathan, the Unicorn, and I will be back tomorrow with more stories. We are here every Monday through Friday at 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. for virtual story time, and we always have these virtual bedtime stories on Monday evenings at 7 p.m. Hope to see you again soon. Good night.